My husband's mother pointed at me from across the room and let out a laugh. She hadn't even hired an attorney. Beside her sat a paper cup of coffee, gone cold and forgotten. I could smell it from my seat, burnt grounds and powdered creamer, a bitter note hanging beneath the smell of old wood and stacked paperwork in Courtroom 3B of the Richmond Courthouse. A handful of people seated behind Patricia Bennett grinned along with her. Her eldest son Stephen straightened the cuffs of his dark suit and leaned in to murmur something to the lawyer at his side. That lawyer's eyes drifted toward the empty seat next to mine, then down to the worn leather folder resting under my palms. No legal team, no paralegal, no towering stack of binders. Just me, alone. Patricia settled back in her chair, satisfied. "You should have taken the deal when we offered it, Laura." I said nothing. The bailiff pulled open the side door. "Everyone rise." The judge walked in holding a slim folder. He set it down, straightened his glasses, and turned his attention to the petitioner's table first. Then his gaze slid to me and stopped. For a half-second, recognition crossed his face. "Good morning, Colonel Bennett." The room went quiet. Patricia's grin vanished. Her lawyer's pen stilled mid-motion. From somewhere in the back, a whisper. "Colonel?" I rose along with the rest of the courtroom, hands loosely at my sides. "Good morning, Your Honor. My name is Laura Bennett." I was 42 that morning, and 3 years earlier I had carried the Silver Eagle insignia of a full colonel in the United States Army. Almost nobody in my day-to-day life knew that. Patricia certainly didn't. In her mind, I'd spent 2 decades shuffling paperwork in some Army office. She'd told relatives I was little more than a clerk. One Thanksgiving, she'd waved a serving spoon in my direction and joked that the Army probably just needed someone to keep the filing cabinets tidy. I handed her the mashed potatoes and let it go. Some moments aren't worth correcting. Others turn your silence into ammunition. That morning, in a custody battle over my 11-year-old daughter Emma, Patricia was about to discover which kind of moment this was. Judge Harold Whitmore glanced down at his docket. "Mrs. Bennett, you're aware you've chosen to represent yourself?" "I am, Your Honor." "And you familiarized yourself with the local rules, the evidentiary standards, and the relevant family law?" "I have." His eyes lingered a moment on my folder. I expected nothing less. Patricia leaned toward her attorney. "What's that supposed to mean?" she hissed. He didn't answer. As the judge worked through preliminary matters, Patricia kept glancing across the room, as if expecting a uniform to materialize beneath my plain gray suit. It wouldn't. I'd boxed up my uniforms the day my husband died. Daniel Bennett had flown helicopters for the Virginia National Guard. He was a man of habit. Coffee before the sun rose, pancakes every Saturday. Emma's shoes lined up by the door each night because she could never locate them in the morning rush. Military households run on someone always knowing what's next, he liked to say. Then one ordinary Tuesday, there was no next. Daniel died in a training accident near Fort Pickett. The official report ran 37 pages, but the only sentence that mattered was 6 words long. There were no survivors aboard. Emma was 8. For weeks afterward, she left the porch light burning, convinced her father might still find his way home late and needed to find his key. I never switched it off. In the beginning, Daniel's parents grieved right alongside us. Patricia showed up with foil-wrapped casseroles. Richard fixed the loose hinge on our back gate. At Arlington, as the soldiers folded the flag and set it in my lap, Patricia gripped my hand and whispered that she had another daughter now. I believed her. That was my first mistake. The complaint started quietly about 6 months in. If Daniel had taken that engineering job, he'd still be here. You always pushed him to keep flying. He wanted out of the Guard, Laura. You know he did. That last part wasn't true. Daniel had every intention of serving until retirement. I had the emails to prove it. His handwritten plan for his career, and I'd been sitting right next to him when he turned down that engineering offer. But grief doesn't always care about facts. Sometimes it just wants someone to blame. I became that someone. At first, I let it slide. I'd spent years prosecuting soldiers who lied, officers who covered for misconduct, contractors who'd built entire businesses on deception. A mother's grief-fueled resentment seemed small next to all that. I also understood that pain can turn decent people cruel for a while. The problem was, Patricia's cruelty didn't fade. It organized itself. She grilled Emma about our finances. She wanted to know why we lived in a modest brick house instead of something grander. She sneered at my aging Honda Pilot. She told relatives I'd come apart emotionally since Daniel's death. At church, she'd study me with that particular look people give when they want you to know they're keeping secrets about you. Then she started phoning Emma directly. "Your mother looks so tired," she'd say. "You could always come live with Grandma if things get hard." Emma told me about those calls one afternoon at the kitchen counter, tracing circles through a spill of milk. "Grandma says you don't talk about Dad because the army changed you." I wiped up the mess with a towel. "What do you think?" Emma shrugged. "I think you don't talk about him because it makes you sad." Kids see straight through the things adults dress up. I told Patricia to stop bringing custody into her conversations with Emma. She accused me of trying to cut the family off. A month after that, a certified letter showed up. Patricia and Richard were filing for custody of Emma. According to the petition, I was emotionally unfit, socially isolated, financially careless, and unable to give my daughter a stable home. They also wanted the court to hand control of Daniel's survivor benefits to an outside conservator. That last part changed everything. Custody was about feelings. Money was strategy. Daniel's benefits had never been mishandled. Every dollar was documented. Emma's education fund had grown steadily. The mortgage was nearly paid off. So why the push for financial control? And why had Stephen, an accountant by trade, suddenly inserted himself into every detail? I read that petition 3 times at my kitchen table while rain tapped the window glass. Max, our golden retriever, dozed near my feet. Upstairs, Emma ran the same 4 bars of a choir song over and over. I brewed some tea, pulled out my old leather folder, and got to work. Word got around that I planned to represent myself, and most people assumed grief had clouded my thinking. Patricia had retained Charles Donovan, one of the most respected family law attorneys in Richmond, a man whose firm spanned 2 floors of a downtown high-rise, whose confidence in a courtroom came from rarely being caught off guard. I respected that. A skilled opponent kept you honest. They forced real preparation. But Patricia was convinced I'd skipped hiring a lawyer because I couldn't afford one. That assumption made her sloppy. During the first break, I stepped into the marble hallway outside the courtroom. A deputy clerk walked by carrying a stack of files. "Good to see you, Colonel." "You too, Rebecca." My dad still brings up the Mallory trial. My stomach tightened. I hope he remembers the law more than the headlines. He remembers you wouldn't hide the evidence. Behind me, Patricia's heels clicked against the marble. Rebecca stepped away. Patricia stopped a few feet off. "What is going on here?" I turned to face her. "You'll need to be more specific. The judge knows you, the clerk knows you, everybody keeps calling you Colonel." "I was a colonel. You never told us. You never asked." Her expression hardened. "I knew you worked for the Army." "You did. I assumed you handled paperwork." "Law involves plenty of paperwork." She stared harder. "You were a military lawyer?" "Yes." "What kind?" "A prosecutor." Something shifted in her face. "Prosecuting what?" I glanced out the tall window at the traffic moving along Broad Street below, a delivery man wheeling a cart, 2 women sharing an umbrella in the rain. The kind of cases people don't forget, even when they'd like to. The bailiff called us back before she could push further. I joined the Judge Advocate General's Corps at 24, fresh out of law school. My early cases were routine: unauthorized absences, theft, drug charges, bar fights that escalated into assault because nobody had the sense to walk away. I learned fast that how you performed in court mattered far less than how well you'd prepared. The loudest attorney rarely won. The one who knew which document had gone missing at the bottom of a box usually did. Over the years, my caseload grew heavier. Contractor corruption, command-level abuse, mistreatment of detainees, war crimes, cases involving senior officers whose faces showed up next to cabinet secretaries and presidents. None of it made me fearless. It made me exact. I came to understand how people acted when they believed their rank would shield them. They talked too much. They explained before anyone asked a question. They pointed fingers at subordinates. They mistook a calm question for a weak one. My longest case involved a major general accused of funneling Reconstruction money through a web of civilian contractors. For 8 months, pressure came at me from every direction. I was offered a transfer, then a fast-track promotion, then a quieter kind of threat. Drop it. I didn't. Judge Whitmore had presided over that court-martial. He'd watched me stand in front of a 2-star general and lay out the evidence while 3 senior officers tried everything to end my career. The general was convicted. My own promotion recommendation disappeared. 2 years later, I made colonel anyway. Daniel stood next to me at the pinning ceremony. Emma, 6 years old, tried to salute with the wrong hand. That photo sat on my dresser until the day the casualty notification officers knocked on my door. After the funeral, I packed every medal, photograph, and commendation into plastic bins and put them away. I didn't want Emma growing up in the shadow of my old rank. I wanted to pack lunches, sit through choir concerts, drive her to soccer practice, argue about bedtime. Ordinary life had become something precious. Patricia mistook that ordinary life for failure. Back in the courtroom, Charles Donovan opened with his statement describing me as distant, secretive, increasingly withdrawn. He suggested my time in the military had left me unable to sustain healthy relationships. I listened without reacting. Then he added that my refusal to discuss my past raised legitimate concerns about unresolved trauma. Clever move. He'd repackaged my privacy as instability. Judge Whitmore looked my way. "Mrs. Bennett?" I stood. "I'll let the evidence speak for me, Your Honor." Patricia smiled faintly, apparently convinced I had nothing to offer. She'd confused my restraint with having nothing to say. Patricia took the stand first. She approached carrying a tissue already unfolded, her voice trembling right on cue. "Why are you seeking custody of your granddaughter?" Donovan asked. "Because I love her." "Do you believe Mrs. Bennett is abusive?" "No." "Neglectful?" "Not exactly." "Has Emma ever gone without food, medical care, proper clothing, or schooling?" "No." "So what worries you?" Patricia's eyes found mine. "Laura keeps everyone at a distance. She hides who she really is." Donovan nodded along. "Did she misrepresent her military career to you?" "Yes." "How?" "By letting us believe she was ordinary." That sentence hung in the air. Judge Whitmore's face didn't change, but his pen went still. Donovan pivoted. "You've also raised concerns about Emma's finances." "Yes. Daniel left significant benefits behind. We have no idea how Laura's been managing them." "Has she given you access to those accounts?" "No." "Did you ask for access?" "Yes." "Did she refuse?" Patricia had no legal claim to my daughter's finances, and I had, in fact, refused. Donovan sat down. "Your witness." I walked to the center of the room with a legal pad in hand. "Mrs. Bennett, how many times did you ask to see Emma over the past year?" "I don't recall exactly." 23? That sounds about right. "How many of those invitations did you turn down?" "I was busy." 17? Her grip on the tissue tightened. "I don't keep count of these things." "I do." I handed the bailiff printed emails and text threads. "Thanksgiving?" "We had other plans." "Emma's school concert?" "I wasn't feeling well." "You posted pictures from a winery that same evening." Donovan jumped up. "Objection." "I'll withdraw that." The judge nodded. I kept going. "Her birthday?" "We were out of town." "Her soccer tournament?" "I don't care for sitting outside in the heat." A murmur passed through the gallery. "And yet you testified that I've kept Emma isolated from you." "I meant emotionally." "Does Emma attend school regularly?" "Yes." "Is she on the honor roll?" "Yes." "Does she play soccer?" "Yes." "Sing in her church choir?" "Yes." "Attend counseling?" "Yes." "Counseling that you recommended?" A pause. "Yes." "Has her counselor ever suggested I am emotionally abusive?" "Not to me." "Any teacher?" "No." "Doctor?" "No." "Coach?" "No." I paused. "When Daniel was alive, how many times did you ask him about my military career?" She looked toward Donovan. He said nothing. "I'm not sure. Maybe once." "Try 0. "No." "Did you ever ask me?" "No." "So when you told people I was a clerk, that came from your own assumption?" "Yes." "Not something I told you." Her voice thinned. "No." I returned to my seat without any theatrics. Truth doesn't need decoration. Next up was Carol Simmons, my neighbor. Donovan asked whether I kept to myself. She said yes. He asked if I socialized much. She said, "Not really." When it was my turn, I approached gently. "Carol, have I ever watched your grandchildren?" "Yes." "Did you stay with Emma the night Daniel died?" Her face softened. "I did." "Did I drive your husband to physical therapy after his surgery?" "Yes." "Did you help me bail out my basement after the water heater burst?" "Until 2 a.m. "So when you called me private, you didn't mean unfriendly?" She smiled. "No. I meant you're not a gossip." A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Then she added, unprompted, Laura doesn't talk much about herself, but she shows up whenever someone needs her. I hadn't asked for that. It landed harder than any criticism could have. Kindness tends to do that when you've spent too long on the defensive. Stephen took the stand after lunch, dressed sharp, expression carefully controlled. Daniel used to say his brother never walked into a conversation without already planning his exit. Donovan introduced printed text exchanges between Stephen and me, seemingly showing repeated refusals on my part to schedule visits. The messages were real. They were also missing pages. 3 of them. Objection, incomplete, I said. Donovan frowned. These are accurate. I never said they weren't accurate. I opened my folder and produced the full thread. The missing messages told a different story. Invitation after invitation from me. Dinner, a school play, Emma's birthday, Christmas, each met with excuses or silence. Judge Whitmore compared the 2 versions side by side. Mr. Donovan, he stood. Your Honor, these documents came directly from my clients. The judge turned to Stephen. This court expects complete evidence. Stephen's jaw clenched. My cross was short. You testified I've blocked family contact. Yes. Did I let Emma spend a weekend at your house last October? Yes. Did I drive her there myself? Yes. Did I give you her medical information and emergency contacts? Yes. So I trusted you with my daughter. A beat. Yes. Who suggested filing this petition? My mother. Patricia's head snapped toward him. Stephen, did you agree with her? His silence dragged too long. Judge Whitmore leaned in. You may answer. No. Patricia's expression cracked. Not fear, betrayal. You told me she'd never fight back, Stephen said, no longer addressing his attorney but his mother. You said Laura would settle because she can't stand attention. That's enough, Donovan snapped, but Stephen wasn't finished. You said once we controlled the money, we could protect it. The room went dead silent. My pen stopped over the notepad. There it was. Not concern. Control. Donovan asked for a recess. Out in the hallway, I stood by a tall window watching rain slide down the glass. I'd spent years questioning witnesses who assumed the truth would bring instant relief. It rarely did. Truth tends to arrive the way surgery does. Necessary, exact, and painful. A familiar voice spoke behind me. Colonel Michael Torres, older now, silver threading through his hair. Mike and I had worked together nearly 8 years as an Army criminal investigator. You came. Heard you finally called in witnesses. I didn't want to drag my old life into Emma's. He glanced toward the courtroom doors. Your old life is exactly what's protecting her now. That line stuck with me. Going into the hearing, I thought the whole thing hinged on whether Patricia could prove I was an unfit mother. By the afternoon, I understood something else entirely. They hadn't just come after my parenting. They'd built their entire case on the bet that I'd stay quiet to keep the family peace. If you've ever tried holding things together with someone dead set on misreading you, you know how draining that kind of silence gets. You start out staying quiet because it makes you strong. Then eventually you realize your silence has become the space where their lies get to live. I called Michael Torres as my first witness. He was sworn in. How do we know one another? We worked together for close to 8 years. What was my role? Lead prosecutor. What kinds of cases? He glanced at Judge Whitmore. War crimes, corruption at the command level, contractor fraud, abuse investigations, cases against senior officers. Donovan shifted in his seat. Did you ever see me bury evidence to protect someone standing? No. Did I ever pass on a case because the accused outranked me? No. Mike paused. She prosecuted a major general after being told unofficially to back off. Donovan objected, but the judge allowed it since Patricia's petition had put my integrity directly in question. Mike went on. Colonel Bennett lost a promotion over refusing to bend to political pressure. She never made it public. Most people assumed that investigation was routine. It wasn't. I looked over at Emma. She was staring at me like I'd become a stranger. That scared me more than anything Donovan had said. I'd worked so hard to be nothing but her mother that I'd buried the parts of myself that explained my silences. Kids deserve parents who are human, not myths, not mysteries. Human. My next witness was Chaplain David Reynolds, who'd served alongside me through some of the hardest stretches of my career. He spoke about the families I'd sat with after trials, the young soldiers I'd steered toward counseling, the nights I'd spent outside the chapel too exhausted to speak but unwilling to be alone. Colonel Bennett was never emotionally distant, he said. She was careful with her emotions because she understood how much weight they carried. Patricia wouldn't meet my eyes. Then Donovan stood. Your Honor, I'm concerned these witnesses are painting an idealized picture.